Okay, good evening or good afternoon or potentially good morning and a very warm welcome to you. I'm Dan and welcome to this King David Women's Day webinar. Happy Women's Day to you if you are a woman and you are watching this. It's great to have you with us this evening. The time has just gone 7 o'clock here Sunday evening, and instead of the carte blanche music, we're going to have a fantastic, amazing panel this evening for the next hour. Joining me on screen next to me here is Daniela Norwich, who is the Executive Head of Talent Management, I think, at South African Board of Jewish Education. Hope I got that right. Okay, so welcome to you. We're going to be hearing from Daniela in a moment or two. We're also going to be, obviously, Mandy will be introducing all of the panelists this evening. You're not going to be hearing much from me, except for in the next minute or so. I'm just going to be doing some Zoom housekeeping. In case you don't know, there is the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, as well as the chat button. If you want to ask any specific questions, please post them into the Q&A section. So please click on the Q&A button. You can also see other people's questions. You can upvote questions. And you can even reply or comment on other people's questions. So that will definitely help us. Mandy and I and Daniela will be monitoring the Q&A as we go. And the chat section, you should be quite familiar with So please let us know where in the world you are. It would be great to know. I know we have panelists from around the world, and I'm sure we have an audience which is truly international. I'm sure a lot of Davidians, a lot of alumni scattered all over the world. So welcome to all of you, wherever you are. Pop us a message in the chat to let us know where you are. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Daniela to give us a bit of an intro.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening. On behalf of the South African Board of Jewish Education and the King David Schools, I would like to warmly welcome you to our Women's Day webinar in celebration of the power of women. My name is Daniela Norwich, and I'm the Executive Head of Talent Management, and it is my great privilege to open tonight's proceedings. Tonight is a collaboration between our 11 schools, Soul, the Division of Jewish Life, our King David School Foundation, and the community at large to uplift, inspire, connect, move, and ultimately together celebrate women. American abolitionist and author Harriet Beecher Stowe said, "Women are the real architects of society." And tonight, we truly have a formidable lineup of women who have designed, built, crafted, chiseled, envisaged, and ultimately made an indelible mark on society and continue to do so in such different ways. We are very honored to have Mandy Wiener as the moderator for this evening. Mandy is one of South Africa's best known and most credible journalists and authors. With 250,000 followers on Twitter alone, she is considered to be amongst the country's premier Twitterati. Before handing you over to Mandy, I would like to leave you with the following thought. To you, the real architects of society, you are the promise, you are the force. Don't step back, and everyone will step forward. Mandy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Daniela. What a pleasure to be in this company tonight with this absolute powerhouse lineup of women. So just to run you through a little bit of what's going to happen tonight and how this is all going to work. So there are 3 speakers, and I'm going to ask you all, if you don't mind, putting your cameras on, just so you can come say hello to everyone and greet everyone and come say hi, because they're all super excited to see you. And then each panelist is going to speak for about 10 minutes to 12 minutes or so. But send us your questions in the chat as it goes, and I'll be collating those and looking at them. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A session, and I'll get to ask all of those questions that come from you, the audience, to the panelists. So I just want to introduce everyone. I'm sure you know who they all are, but just a very brief bio so that they can say hello. So firstly, Melissa Mayo. Hey, where are you?
Ciao, come stai?
Are you in Italy?
I am, I'm in Italy.
That's amazing. So Melissa, I follow you on Facebook, but for those of you who don't know you, obviously, she's a King Davidian, a South African-born Food Network chef, author, inspirational speaker, international traveler, wife, mother, and my favorite part, eternal optimist. So, hey, Melissa, thank you for joining us. What are you doing in Italy?
Relaxing at my home, living la dolce vita. What can I say? I'm a huge fan too, and it is so wonderful to be in such great company tonight.
Brilliant. So Melissa's going to speak first, but I just want to say hello to everyone else before we do that. Jody Samuels, hey, how are you doing?
Hi from Jerusalem.
So you're a South African-born author, connector, speaker, non-profit leader, world traveler, community activist, special needs advocate, wife and mom. But what I've really heard is that you host amazing Shabbos dinners.
Yes, that's true. And I look forward to post-COVID and resuming that.
How's Israel today?
It's good.
Israel.
Yeah, it's Israel.
Brilliant. Okay, so Jody's going to be speaking second, and then Simi Polanski Hoffman.
Hi.
Hey, Simi, how you doing?
Good, thank God.
Thank you so much. I know people are super excited to hear from you as well, and you're on mommy duty at the same time, so bravo to you. For those that don't know, Simi is Australian-born, New York-based CEO of boundary-breaking fashion brand, which I'm sure a lot of you follow on Instagram, The Frock NYC. And Simi shares her journey about finding hope through desperation after the passing of her husband, searching for joy and rebuilding the life we deserve. Thanks so much, Simi. What's happening? Where are you?
I'm in New York, and actually COVID, I would say it feels intense, but it is getting better at the present moment. Things are slowly opening up and people are just trying to work through and hold on. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, we can't wait to hear from you as well. So good luck with, I'm sure we may see some kids appearing and things like that. So so thanks so much. Okay, so you can all switch your cameras off. We're going to start with you, Melissa. Just a little bit more of a longer intro for you, because it's a pretty long intro, so I'm not going to go too long. But you're obviously based in Los Angeles. You're originally from South Africa. You went to King David, and I'm sure we're going to hear you talk a little bit about that King David experience as well. You have a cooking school in Lucca in Italy, which I'm so jealous of. I think that must be amazing.
Have to come.
Wow, that's pretty enticing, actually. Thanks. I'm not sure that's very diet friendly, but I think it's life friendly. So
there's no such word as diet in the Italian vocabulary.
Well, then I'm Italian. Okay, so you have also just released a book called Manifesting Miracles. So you're not just a chef. This is about so much more. And then obviously your 5 cookbooks in print. You've just released your 6th. And share step-by-step actionable tools for making dreams become a reality. So I can't wait to hear from you. You get to speak for like 10 minutes and everyone gets to listen to you. So thank you so much. I can't wait to hear.
Mandy, before we actually switch over, let's just let the audience in on the little thing that just happened in the back end when we were testing. Because
you're not supposed to tell people this, Melissa.
I was under the impression you were going to be interviewing me. So I'm going to already just say to the audience, I didn't realize I had to speak for 12 minutes. I have no speech planned. So
you know that
off the cuff.
You know that I only interview people when they've done something bad or wrong, right?
I've always done something wrong. Always.
Well, I'm sure that you can talk for a few minutes and then I'll jump in and ask you some questions.
Oh,
just pull your ear when you're freaking out.
My mother used to make me do that when we sneezed. You have to pull your ears. I don't know why. It's my sugars, right?
Okay, so I'll ask you the first question and then you can pick up from there. So tell us about how King David, as such a nurturing environment that celebrates women, and you know the reason we're here today, how that was a contributor to your success in life.
Perfect. So I would say that King David per se was the first. Even though I grew up in a very Jewish home where I always, we celebrated Shabbos and we had, Chagim. For me, King David was the first time I really embraced morning prayer and saying the Shema and the Modani, and just that became the foundation of my life, and it spun off into everything that became the cornerstone of who I was as a person. And still to this day, some of the routines in my book that I used to manifest this miracle involve aligning with Hashem and the source and the light that flows through all of us. So for me, coming from Glen Hazel Primary, where if you're in South Africa, you know, we were given the pass to sing Our Father who art in heaven, to coming to say morning prayers and davening, it became something that still is a huge, huge part of my life. Shabbat is a huge part of my life. Being Jewish and proudly Jewish is a massive, massive part of my life. But I will say, because first off, if you're tuning in and you've been following me for a while, I'm like so stoked. I feel so humble and so grateful, and I love you. And I want to remind you on Women's Day that there is nothing about me that I'm doing that is different from anything that you can do. You are a one-of-a-kind miracle. God picked you and he put his spark and he put his light and he breathed his breath into you because you have a purpose, a mission, a divine mission. You are meant to be a soldier in his army, spreading light. And I know right now the world is in so much darkness, and I feel very, very fortunate that we got to come to Italy. But what I always said, and this was at the start of COVID, it's kind of something I wanted to delve into, was that COVID life is kind of like life minus the running around in Italy. Mealtime, time with family, things happen really, really slowly. And I've been here a couple of weeks and I've realized how piano, the slow pace is, not the speeding up and this rushing. So amidst all of the mayhem and I guess I get wanting to duct tape your family because you just had enough of them and get out and break free. We've also been given a gift to go inside. And in my life, I grew up, the truth is, not in the most perfect of circumstances. I didn't come from parents that were happily married. In fact, my parents never shared a bedroom. And I delved into these stories in my book to give you the tools so you know that there is nothing. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and this didn't come easy to me. But I did understand that I was picked by God, and so were you picked by him. And so right now, in these moments, it's time to go inside. It's time to use this quiet space, this energy that flows through you, this light that flows through you, and slow it down so you can tap into and talk to your creator, because he is always, always listening. From the youngest of ages, I was able to, instead of being drawn into the mayhem and the toxicity and the negativity, I was able to tap into his light and befriend him like he was my play friend. Hashem was always with me, and he's always walked with me, and he's always walking with each and every one of you. By the fact that you inhale and you exhale, you are connected to his spark. So I wanted to say that the miracle I manifested happened to be this amazing home and cooking school in Italy, but it can be anything in the world that you are wanting to manifest. I'm looking for this timer, by the way. Anyone can point me to it so I know I'm on time. Where is the timer?
Melissa, I'm keeping time. You're 5 minutes in. You're all good.
Okay, great, awesome. Thank you. Tell me when I've gone over. So this light inside you is the gateway to manifesting whatever it is. Maybe you're struggling with an illness like cancer, or you're trying to quit an addiction, or you're trying to find a soulmate, or switch dream jobs, or right now you're battling to even pay the bills because you don't have a job. I promise you that he is always listening. He is always in the wings. And there's a wonderful chapter in my book. It says, "Where is God?" I think it's a Rebbe quote, and it says, "Where you let him in." You have to open the door. You have to allow him in, and you have to ask him for guidance, and you have to make a space in your life for him. And that is really the roadmap to manifesting miracles. So I wanted to just kind of quickly go through. They were words that were channeled to me in this house whilst I had my chitas and a tzedakah can and my late father's siddur and my mother's Star of David and my daughter and husband and late parents' pictures here, and I put these 65,000 words on the page in 10 days. I mean, the book was channeled, and it was so crazy because when I wanted to put it out in the world, it was to take out the Jewishness and it'll be much more relatable. But it was a gift, and what I wanted to touch on today, on Women's Day, is that you have this power within you. One, you are a spark, a child of creation. That's like step one. And if you buy the book in the link today, I am actually going to be donating $5 from every copy sold back to the King David School Foundation to benefit them. But the first step is recognizing that you are a child of God and that He lives inside you. The second most important step is that at any point in time, you can drop your baggage and you can rewrite your story or your contract with the universe. You are in the same place that you are right now because you are telling that same story to yourself on rinse and repeat. Your ideals that have been handed down to you by society and school and religion have told you what your limits are and what you're capable of. I'm asking you to take down all those limiting beliefs and tear them up and throw them out and create a new contract with the universe. And then I'm asking you, once you've done that, to take this light inside you and share it. Because the most important thing to attracting miracles is that in giving, you receive. So when you open yourself up, you are an empty vessel for receiving blessings. And I always like to think of it, if you've been following me for a while, you guys know I'm a surfer, the water is my happy place. So I like to think of it as like a metaphor on the beach, where you're grabbing handfuls of sand, and if you hold them really, really tightly, all the sand that you're grasping at flows through your fingers. But if you hold it loosely, you contain all the blessings and you can share more and receive more going forward. So I want you to find little opportunities every day. They don't have to be huge opportunities, but just to give a kind word to a stranger. Or if you know someone is struggling right now, pick up the phone. Technology and the internet and all of this is so impersonal. It is so disconnected from, who you are. The telephone right now, like hearing someone's voice in COVID, is so much more personal than a text or a WhatsApp message. And then I'm definitely going to ask you just to remain in the present moment and count your blessings. The simple blessings every day. The Modea Need prayer is one of the cornerstones I use for manifesting, because you literally thank God for this life, for this ability to inhale and exhale and literally see and have a roof over your head. So it's the little blessings that when we count, that attitude of gratitude that cultivates this energy where we align with our source and we become a magnet for everything in the world that we are trying to manifest. And then the other most important thing I want you to realize is, I don't know, in South Africa, you guys are mainly all South Africans, so you know Enid Blyton. I loved The Faraway Tree, The Famous Five, The Secret Seven, The Wishing Chair. These were like my favorite books. And I could see myself going to the land at the top of the tree, and I could see myself, flying on a chair. We've lost this ability to dream today because we're so weighted down by the opinions of society. So I want you to use this limitless power of your imagination, and I want you to tap into it to create the life you want. Whatever you want is out there. Even scientists who have disconnected all of scientific law say there's only energy. There is no new matter. You have the ability within your soul, your neshama, your spark that God placed inside you to draw to you that which you want and crave. But He's busy. He kind of needs a roadmap, and He needs you to be specific. You need to paint it in explicit detail. And while I look around this house, I can tell you that when we've been looking for years, it was so hard to find a house in Tuscany that had light, because all the houses have small windows But in my vision, I had seen a house filled with light. And this home just happened to have had an American architect like add on a floor. So whatever pictures you paint, be careful with what you're painting as those pictures, because they will come to be. And I just wish you blessings right now in this time. I just, in the silence, in the quiet, tune into it, savor it, and just slow down. It's the thing I love the most about being in Italy. They are rich beyond measure because they have a table and some bread and friends and family around them. So, and they will give you the shirt off their back. And they're not, you know, in their phones, and some of them don't even have emails. But maybe this whole lockdown is Hashem's way of saying, you guys lost the plot just a little. You strayed a little too far from me, and your homes and your cars and your things, all were the things you were like a hamster on the wheel, needing more and more and more and more. This should be a time to declutter, a time to take stock, a time to take inventory, a time to clean house, spring clean, make space inside you, because when you are empty inside, Hashem can enter and bless you. That's really the secret to manifesting miracles. And as I say, it's a simple roadmap. It's all in here, and I can't wait to see what you manifest.
Melissa, that's amazing. Thank you so much. I have one quick question for you before we move on. What was it for you that made you into who you are in terms of such a popular and successful chef? What was the catalyst that took you from King David to to Italy, where you are today, and how did you become?
Parents grew up as children of orphans from the war. All my grandparents were in Arcadia. I only met one of them. Scarcity mentality. I grew up in a house where the sky was always falling. Everybody, was worried about the next bill and then, not having enough. So I was told I could be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant. And this was like the thing I wanted the least in the world. I was a creative, I loved the stage, I loved to perform. So basically, I went off to the States, and when I changed careers, food was this common language of love. Like for me, it's time around the table. It connects all the parts. It connects all of this. And I didn't really know anything about shooting or taking pictures. I didn't even know anything about, cooking. I just learned from my mom to taste. But that's never stopped me in the past. And so I kind of just dived into it. And I think why my audience and I have always connected is because to this day, I still answer every message, every text. I work alone. I have no staff. I'm authentic. If I'm broken and crushed and fallen and destroyed, I share it. If I am, celebrating, I share it, but I'm always authentic. There's no bullshit. Sorry, but there's no facade I'm playing. I am real, and as real as I can be. All my faults and my flaws make me who I am. And I think my audience realize that it's their faults and flaws and victories and struggles that that make them who they are. So anyone out there wanting to build something, I would just say, do you, because everybody else is taken.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That was outstanding. Thanks for sharing. And if you have a question for Melissa, Melissa, I'm going to ask you just to switch your camera and your microphone off. If you have a question, please put it in the Q&A. And after everyone's spoken, I will be looking at those questions. So whatever questions you have for Melissa or any of the speakers, please just pop them in the Q&A and I will ask them. So next up is Jody Samuels. Hey, Jody.
Hi.
Okay, so just a little bit more in case you missed the beginning, a bit of an intro. So Jody is a South African-born author, a connector, a speaker, a non-profit leader, a world traveler, a community activist, a special needs advocate, a wife, and a mom. She successfully started 2 non-profit Jewish organizations, including the Jewish International Connection, that currently boasts 10,000 members from 40 countries. You have a very long bio full of lots of amazing things. I'm sure people actually just want to hear you speak. And so my first question to you is, I've heard a lot about these Shabbos dinners that you apparently you hosted a lot of people for Shabbos dinner.
We host thousands, yes.
Do you cook it all yourself, or how do you do that logistically?
Yeah, I do have help, but yeah, we do cook, and it's not just me, it's an entire family affair. My kids are involved, my husband, we're all involved.
Amazing.
But I will tell you a little secret that South Africans are my favorite groups to host, because they never stop being South African, and they come to my house and they're always like, it's my favorite question, but eventually someone in the group always says, can I have a squiz? They couldn't possibly come to your house without checking your house out at some point.
They open the cupboards and
so yes.
Brilliant. Well, you're going to speak to us tonight about how life does not have to be perfect to be wonderful. So the floor is yours, Jody. Thanks so much.
Thank you. I am a true wandering Jew. I started my journey in Johannesburg. We moved to New Zealand, Outback New Zealand, Outback Australia, and finally moved to Jerusalem 6 years ago. And I still have the accent, can't get rid of it no matter how hard I try. In 2008, we're living in New York City, and we were probably this ideal dream couple. We had 2 adorable children. We're traveling the world. We were going out every night. And yeah, we go out every single night of our lives, hosting hundreds of people in our home. And I always joked with my husband that all the singles in my not-for-profit organization would say, when we grow up, we want to be just like the Samuels. In 2008, when I was pregnant, I had a mother's intuition that something was wrong. And I remember discussing it with my husband, who's a doctor, and he was like, but everything's good, I don't understand. I made him come to ultrasounds with me, to the OBGYN, and everything was all good. No one could understand my stress. In fact, when they were prepping me for my C-section, I was praying, God, please give me the strength to come what comes my way. It wasn't, God, please help me to have a healthy child. My intuition knew something was wrong. Kayla was born, and we sent out a message to everyone, mom and baby doing well. On day 3 of her life, a doctor walked into the hospital ward and asked me the words that would change our lives forever, and said, Mrs. Samuels, did you do genetic testing? I sat bolt upright. I was in pain. I'd had a cesarean. And he mentioned his suspicion of Down syndrome. I was 34 at the time, and in the US, that makes me almost a mature age mom. And my OBGYN was very insistent that I do testing we hadn't done for our other children. So we decided to do genetic screening, but not invasive testing like an amnio, which is also definitive tests. The results came back 1 in 5,000 chance of a child with Down syndrome. And I remember my OBGYN saying, Mrs. Samuels, with results like this, I'm comfortable not proceeding with testing. Fast forward when she walked in the hospital room and she said, what's the probability you guys are the 1 in 5,000? My husband was like, exactly that. You are the 1 in 5,000. We are the 1 in 5,000. I knew what Down syndrome was because I have a cousin who in the 70s was born with Down syndrome. She was institutionalized she's still in the Selwyn Siegel. I'd seen Down syndrome people at shul. But to be honest, I was absolutely and totally terrified of the concept. And my life flashed in my head. And I was like, what's this going to mean for my older children? What's it for their future? Are they going to get married? Well, I managed to still work. Will I be able to travel like the world, like we always do. I've been to 87 countries. Well, I'd continue my community work and engagement. I'd always dreamed of being on the front page of Fortune or Business Magazine. But I knew how hard this would be, mostly for my family. We had a lot of family trauma around this. In fact, I had another cousin who was born with special needs, and my grandparents at that point decided there was no God, and they never ever stepped in a shul ever again, except for a grandchild's bar mitzvah or wedding. And here I was, this type A personality, lying in my hospital bed. I'm the person who takes control of every single situation. There was really nothing I could do. I couldn't change this. And Gavin reassured me. He said, oh, look in her eyes, you can see she switched on. And I was like, you don't know what your kid's going to be. How can you tell from a 3-day-old child? But he was calm and he was supportive. I hobbled to the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, why, God? Why us? Why me? Why? And I thought about it and I was like, I had had 2 miscarriages between my other daughter, Kayla, between Tamira and Kayla. And I was like, if you were God, wouldn't you choose those people with the open home, the open door policy, the people who host everyone, including the lost, the lonely, the searching, the recovering addicts? Literally, we had this open home. And I had this moment of clarity that this is the neshama that God wanted us to have. I walked out and I mentioned it to my husband, and thank God he was on the same page. We never thought it would be easy. We never thought it would be without challenges. We knew this was just the beginning of a journey, but we decided we were going to control the message. And we sent another message to our whole database. We had thousands of people on our database. And this time we said that our princess has challenges. And we explained to them that we've chosen the name Kayla, which is from the Yiddish word crown, because she was always going to be our princess. And we also were very sure we were never going to have our siblings feel that their sister was a burden. In fact, when people came to visit us in the hospital, they were quite stunned at our reaction. We'd say, like, we have news for you. And they'd say, what, twins? And we'd be like, drop a bombshell. And we'd be like, no, she has Down syndrome. Everybody was so sad, so many tears. Only one person said, Mazel Tov. On the way out of the hospital, they check your hospital band to make sure you have the right baby. And my husband said to me, Jody, they should just brand activist on our forehead. Little did we know that activist was prophetic for what we'd have to become. We came home and I was in Jody mode. Therapy, support, services, mentors. I was not sad, but I did read a book, What to Expect When You Have a Child with Down Syndrome. And I was like, oh my God, I've given birth to a monster. It was very, very scary. A few months in, we were on a hike and I was deep in thought and my husband cracked a joke and I laughed and we both laughed. And it was that first time I realized, you know, I actually can be happy in spite of the challenges. It was like a weight was off my shoulders. Kayla blew us away despite all the negative predictions about where she would be and what she would achieve. She walked, she talked, she was eating. But at 2 years old, we went to the community Jewish day school where her siblings attend. And we tried to get a meeting to ask if she could join the 2-year-old program and no one got back to us. Finally, we got a meeting and we said, they were like, sorry, this program isn't appropriate for you. And we're like, why not? Your goal of the 2-year-old program is socialization and communication. And they really said, not for us, we'll consult professionals. After running after them, I got this answer from the rabbi saying, Mrs. Samuels, the answer is no, it's a unanimous decision. We spoke to hundreds of professionals. I was, Rabbi, hundreds of professionals? How's that possible? You know, that not even one person would say that. Eventually he told us, well, there's no resources, there's no space. And I was, Rabbi, are you telling us that there's no space for a child with Down syndrome? And that was when Mama Grizzly was unleashed. I realized that we're going to have to change the narrative because we live in a privileged world, one of the highest socioeconomic neighborhoods, small classes, private schools, resources provided by New York City. And I tried reaching out to the rabbi. I tried telling him as a Baal Tshuva, this is something so important to me. I chose my journey. I wanted my child to have a Jewish education. I asked him about the impact on the siblings. I told him a story about my son, how he was so sensitive to a beggar. And I said, Rabbi, how one day am I going to explain to my child, where was his rabbi? Where was his school? And we decided that, you know, in Pirkei Avot, when it says, when there's no leader, be a leader, we thought we have to be leaders. We have to help change the narrative for special needs families. And we started running community forums. We started having events, but then the threat started. They threatened us with legal issues, threatened to crush my not-for-profit. Someone told my husband when he went to speak to him, a big macha, and my husband asked him what to do. He said, we can give your child half a Homentashen, or we can let her light a Hanukkah candle, but send her to one of those non-Jewish schools. Someone else said to us, you chose to bring this problem into the world. Don't make this problem yours. And that was a board member of a modern Orthodox school. So we decided to run these community forums. And for those of you who know me from the past, I was this very quiet, shy Jody. And suddenly I was taking charge and reaching out to people and explaining to them our journey. I became an advocate. There was lights, camera, action. We were in the media. Kayla inspired my blog, which led to my book, Chutzpah, Wisdom and Wine. But Kayla really taught all of us so many lessons. She changed the community's knee-jerk reaction. She showed us that by sharing stories of being a real person, people could relate to her, not to just a random Down syndrome person. She allowed other special needs parents to take a stand. She taught me to slow down. She taught me not to be as type A as I was. And she's now 12. She attends regular school. She speaks 2 languages, Hebrew and English fluently. We take her to parent-teacher conferences when we can't speak. She's been to 50 countries. She'll tell you Bosnia is her favorite country. For her Bat Mitzvah project, she raised $22,000 for a village in Zambia. And my message to Kayla is, Kayla, I would not change you for the world, but I would change the world for you. And Kayla has taught a lesson for all humanity. Every one of us on the planet right now is reeling from the effects of COVID and our world being changed upside down. But the message Kayla has taught me and for all of us is life does not have to be perfect to be wonderful. Thank you.
Jody, that was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. That was very poignant and moving. So just a reminder as well that Jody's book is called Chutzpah, Wisdom and Wine. And if you've got questions for Jody, please post them on the Q&A and I'll be sure to ask them to you when everyone has finished speaking. Thanks, Jody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the final speaker, Simi. Hey. Hi, Simi. Jody, thank you. Okay, so Simi, you're in New York.
Yes, I'm in Brooklyn.
Brilliant. So do you know that you have like a cult following in South Africa?
I have to come. And you know what? If not for COVID, I would have been here. I would have been there by now. So
I think there's a lot of people that all 3 of you would love to see you. So when the flyer went out for this event, I got so many messages from people saying, I can't believe you're speaking to these women. It's amazing. So thank you so much. So for those of you who don't know, Simi is an Australian-born, New York-based CEO of a boundary-breaking fashion brand, The Frock NYC. And I know a lot of people follow you on Instagram as well. You've shared your journey about finding hope through desperation, searching for joy, and rebuilding the life we deserve. You're the co-founder and co-chief executive of The Frock, an e-commerce fashion startup offering modern and timeless fashion essentials to women who prefer to dress modestly. You are a recently remarried widow and proud mother of 3. You use your business platform to share your personal story in the hope that it inspires others to find their voice, to share it, and lead them on a path to create happier, healthier lives. I've been watching some of your videos of your talks that you've done before. And the one line that I thought was just incredible is about how you have the ability to be so broken yet so whole at the same time. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your story and your journey, and I'm sure that a lot of other people are too. So thank you so much, Simi.
Thank you so much for having me. I really believe that everyone we meet and everyone we see is there to help guide us on our own journeys. So I hope that what I can share with you today can somehow impart something to help guide you to move forward on yours. I used to have this conversation with myself all the time. And I would say, Simi, you're allowed to be happy. No, I can't. They're going to think I'm not sad anymore. Simi, you're allowed to be happy. No, they're going to think I've forgotten. Simi, I would say to myself, you're allowed to be happy. And I would say back to myself, no, I'm going to think that I'm not sad anymore. I want to take you back 2.5 years ago, where I had the most happy, blessed life. And from the period of one day to the next, I lost the love of my life and the light of my life, Shua. My husband, who was 31 years old, from a rare virus that attacked his heart. We had 2 children, and I was 4 months pregnant at the time. And within 3 weeks of hearing devastating news that he was sick, with all the prayers from around the world, Shua lost his life. And at that moment, my life was over. It was ended. The last time I shared publicly about my story and my journey, I shared about hope and what it would mean to find happiness again. And then a few months later, I got remarried to the most beautiful human being in the world, Yaniv. And now, here I am sharing with you how to find happiness. How did I get here? And as I was thinking about what I was going to share today, I asked myself, Simi, how did you get here? Today, there are so many people in pain and suffering. People have lost jobs, have lost the certainty of their futures. People lose loved ones. Every circumstance is different, but people go through their own challenges and nothing is ever the same. But nonetheless, we have challenges and we have the pain. How do we get to the point where we can be happy regardless of the situation we're in? How did I come from a place where I wasn't able to move from a bed to the place where today I'm so happy? I don't know how I have the audacity to say I promised myself and everyone around me that I was never going to be happy again. I was a very miserable human being, and I spent a year pleading with God from the depths of my soul to fix the situation, to fix my life. And that either meant to bring Shua back or take me and my children to wherever he was. There was nothing I could do to escape the terror, the torture, or the nightmare. No matter how much I cried, how loud I screamed, and how heavy I found my body on my bathroom floor night after night, I didn't get the answer that I wanted. And I would live with this unanswered question, this plea, for so long that I started to realize that perhaps I was expecting from God. I had the wrong expectations from God. And when I realized that I was expecting and asking for something that wasn't what this life was about, I shifted the responsibility to fix my life to God, to myself. And with that came an acceptance that Shua was actually gone, something that I had denied for so long. I was like, if God's not going to fix this, oh no, then I have to. This was my first realization on my journey And the reality of it was devastating, because that in itself came with a whole new wave of grief, knowing that I was actually going to have to live my life without Shua. Although it was at that exact moment where I surrendered to that reality, I was actually for the first time able to see a path ahead. I wasn't happy about it. I was sad, I was angry. I was angry that God had given me this responsibility when he had created my circumstance. And I said, it's not fair. I shouldn't be responsible to fix this. And that pain and the sadness, it turned into anger, not only towards God, but it started directing itself towards life and everything in it. When you're so angry at someone else, it not only destroys that person and that relationship, but it really destroys your insides. I remember I spent a month visiting my parents for the Chagim, and I didn't leave my room for that month. And my children spent all the meals with my parents, and I knew that they were okay, but there was nothing worth it for me to leave my room. I was in such a state of desperation, such a state of hopelessness. And then one day I watched my brother playing with his child, and his child said to him, like any child says to the parents, he said, "Daddy," it was something about that. "Daddy something." And I was so angry and so jealous, and then also so shocked with the person who I had become, because the anger and the pain had completely overtaken my entire life and the way I functioned on an everyday level. In the beginning of my journey, in the process of figuring out how to live one day after the next, initially the pain was very comforting to me, because having the pain meant that I was fighting for sure to come back, and that was my only option. But when I realized that that was not going to be the outcome anymore, the pain wasn't comforting. I remember feeling that I came to a point where, I don't know if some people, of controlled crying, where you leave the baby to cry for 5 minutes at a time, and then they cry, and eventually they just pass out because there's nothing left. That was me. I came to the point where I was holding on to that anger and that pain for so long that I had nothing left, and my body couldn't actually hold it anymore. So how did I get here? How did I get to now? I'm telling you, I said, I can attest and say that I'm the happiest woman in the world. When I realized that I couldn't handle the physical and emotional pain of living in such a heavy state of grief, that was the first time I allowed myself, I said, I need to breathe. That meant I went to the movies with my friend when they asked me, even if it meant I left halfway out and cried on the street. It meant I went to the restaurant with my sister, even if it meant I only lasted for 10 minutes. It meant I decided for the first time in a year, I was going to host Shabbat again in my home, so my children would know what it meant again to have the feeling of life and Shabbat. And as I did that, I realized I'm actually doing the practice of living. I'm doing it, but I'm still sad. And it was in doing that and finding the release and finding little pockets of enjoyment and happiness where I was able to see for the first time that I am able to be happy and sad at the same time. Me being happy doesn't take away my pain. It's mine and I own it. It's a part of my body. It's a part of my life, and nothing will diminish it. And that was the first time where I was able to really let it in a big way. It was that point in my journey where I understood that I was actually never, ever going to lose my sadness. And that was the gateway for me to usher in life, for me to start living. A few weeks after that, Hashem brought Yaniv into my life in the most miraculous way. And it took me time, to be able to understand myself, that I could be happy, but then to even be comfortable to show other people, for me to say to myself, you know what, Simi, even if people see that I'm even if people see that I'm happy, I will always own this part of me, this story, my love for Shua, and I'm going to hold both. And so coming back to my conversation in the beginning, it's not with me and myself anymore, it's with me and Shua. And he says, Simi, you're allowed to be happy. And then he says, and I'm still always going to be here. So that is something I do that's a conversation I have on a constant, all the time, every day, and something I share with myself. And now that I've come to understand that I can hold both, I feel like the luckiest, most blessed woman in the world. So thank you.
Amazing, Simi. Thank you so much for sharing that story of life after loss and how you have permission to be happy. And I just think that you are so raw and so honest and so candid about your journey and about your experience. Thank you for speaking to us all tonight.
Thank you.
So I do have a question for you before we open up to all the questions. And just a reminder again, if anybody has a question, I do see some raised hands. If you can please type your question in the Q&A. We're about to open up to the Q&A. I'm going to ask you a question, Simi. In the meantime, ladies, can all of you put your microphones and your cameras on? So, Simi, I'm interested in, obviously, you also have the frock, which is this like massive thing in itself. Do you ever worry that you have become defined by your story of loss and being happy after loss? When people also want to hear from you about your success personally, about the frock and how that became such a big thing.
Well, it did. It was actually a struggle for me because within my business in a sense became, which is my God-given, I would say, gift, to express my talent. And when it was there to express my talent, it also expressed who I was as a person. And so it was very challenging for me because I became the space of grief and the space of sadness. And I said, how am I going to, I felt embarrassed and guilty to share my happiness, because the guilt and the fear was people saying, you're a fraud. 1 second you're sad and all of a sudden we're watching your journey. And that was challenging. It was really within myself understanding that I can be happy and I can be sad at the same time. And just because I show people that I'm happy, it doesn't mean that I've ever forgotten, God forbid. It doesn't mean, because we don't. Sadnesses and challenges that we have, they never leave us. The childhood we come from, the pain that we go through, we don't ever get to run away from them. In fact, if we hold them and we say, yes, this is mine, and we face them, that can help us really be the person who we are and share my business with the world and share my happiness. But it was a challenge and a process for me to go through. And it's still something that I'm working on.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to the Q&A. So if you have questions, please post them in the Q&A at the bottom. I'll read them and I'll make sure that they get sent to the right person. Simi, are you happy to stay on for a little bit? Or okay, no problem. Okay, so if there are any questions for Simi, because she has to go and be a mom and balance everything, here's one. I have a question for Simi. How did you get started on modest fashion and work towards building this massive brand that so many girls follow? From Natanya. For those who aren't speaking, do you mind just muting yourself, and then you'll put your mics back on when I ask a question? Okay, go for it, Simi.
I'm going to give a really quick 2-second backdrop just to paint you a picture. Maybe people from Cape Town will relate. I grew up in a beach suburb called Coogee Beach. At the time when I was 4, 5, 6, till 16, till 18, till I lived there, my parents were the rabbi and rebbitzin of the shul there. And we were the only from family within a 5-mile radius. And my dad's Chabad, my parents, I come from a Chabad family. And we would walk down the street every Shabbat afternoon, and my dad would be wearing his black pants, his white shirt, he has a beard, and he'd be singing loud and proud his Jewish songs. Good Shabbos, good Shabbos. And I, as a child, I remember feeling mortified. People, it was cafe culture. People were at the beaches wearing shorts and bikinis, and I was wearing the dress that my mother made me wear to shul. And I remember that feeling, and I said, I love my family so much. I love and this obviously evolved till I was a teenager and adult. I love my heritage so much, but I don't like the feeling where I don't belong. And that kind of started the synthesis where I was like, I want to combine my faith and my passion. And my passion was Vogue. A driving force where I was like, I don't have to look like a cookie cutter box the way that my mom thought that's the only way we could be. And my mission today is to show women and to teach them we can be Orthodox, we can live religious lives with boundaries and still be ourselves and still hold our fashion. And that was the impetus behind my brand, and still is like the driving force.
Brilliant, thank you. Will you stay on for one more? Do you have to go?
No, one more, perfect.
Okay, if anybody's got a question for Simi, please put it in the chat very quickly. You're going to get the last question for Simi. In the meantime, Jody, do you still have contact with that rabbi and school? Have you managed to change their perspective?
It's interesting because they've had a whole new administration come in, and some of the people who are now in the administration are people who actually were involved in our struggle, took our side. And I do believe that understanding the challenges we went through informed them of the challenges for so many special needs families. So while the rabbis left and a lot of the older administration have left, I have heard that they are definitely more inclusive now and have changed their ways. But I'm not personally in contact with any other people who were on the other side, so to speak.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, Simi, one last question for you before we go. Obviously, you use social media quite a bit to promote the frock, and a lot of your talks have been on social media as well. How do you retain your authenticity and being yourself? And when you speak, you are so authentic, when social media can be, in a way, quite superficial.
I think it's something, and again, I'm going to attribute this a little bit to the way I was brought up, is that I was very comfortable with seeing my parents. It was just part of our family culture. I was comfortable with seeing my parents in a very public way and their relationship with a community. And as such, it was something like, oh, that's okay. You can be personal and share, but still be private. And so I actually had, like, for example, when Shua first got sick, I had nothing else to share on social media besides my truth. And I said, I can't just get on there and say, oh, I'm wearing a yellow dress, the sun is shining, when my insides, doesn't align with my truth. So the only way I know how to express myself, for better or for worse, is when it's aligned with my truth.
Brilliant. Thank you, Simi. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you. My sister has an op Sharonish, so I'm running there now.
Priorities, and we understand. You're a superwoman. Like all of these women, you can do many things at the same time. So thank you. Melissa, I have a question for you here. So obviously food has been your gateway to success. How do you translate food into being a life coach, and the transition for you from being a chef to this latest book that you've written? You know, what was that transition for you?
So, great question you asked it, but the truth is that the opening quote for my next book is, "A healthy body needs a healthy soul." It's a Rebbe's quote, and it basically speaks to the fact that, am I breaking up? I know I was breaking up in the last.
No, you're fine. You go ahead. Okay. Keep going. You're all good.
So a healthy body needs a healthy soul. So the truth is that so many people look at food as this, you know, everyone said, well, how do you stay in shape? What do you eat? What exercise do you do? How do you look the way you look? And so much about it wasn't just about the meal on my plate. So much of it was about the thoughts I was putting into my head and the words I was speaking to myself and the energy I was bringing into my soul. And so it was hard pressed for me to share what most people would call a diet book, because I don't believe in diets. I don't believe in restriction or moderation, or I believe in listening to your body and tuning into it and enjoying the little spoon of chocolate or that glass of wine or that steak and that carb or piece of bread. And so much of it came to how today things are labeled good and bad. Diets that are good and bad, restrict these foods. I live in Los Angeles, the home of like the juice cleanse. And let me just say for the record, I do not think you should drink your food, you should chew and savor it. And just looking around, even just, you know, a meal in Italy, it's 3 hours. You sit around the table, you enjoy a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but not a lot of everything. And so it just came to this whole way that people have labeled food with their minds. And I realized that I couldn't really tap into the secrets till I really made people fall in love with themselves and accept themselves and love themselves and nurture this relationship where they like themselves at the end of the day. Because beauty comes from inside. I will never forget, Jade was maybe in 5th grade, or what, my daughter, she was 10, and we were walking back from school, and she said, my teacher said there was this Roald Dahl quote, a beauty from the inside shines without. And it's true. A beautiful person is outside is a beautiful soul, a beautiful neshama. So I needed to marry food with the spiritual and the mental and the soul level of like food.
Excellent, thank you. Jody, there's a question for you here from Debbie Mayer. Hi, Debbie. Please tell us more about your 1,000 people Shabbases.
So our journey started when we were already living in a small place in Australia, and it was called the Gold Coast, and my husband was a doctor working in a practice, and people would come in and they would see his kippah and they would be, wow, my mom's Jewish. And he would say, well, that means you're Jewish. And they were like, no, I'm not Jewish, just my mom is. And we realized that there were so many hundreds of like Jewish people living in that community that weren't connecting. So we started randomly inviting people, and we landed up having 40, 50 people. This was many, many years ago, every single Shabbat, even in these small little places. And then we would put signs, this is pre-email, on like poles in the neighborhood. And we got all these Israeli backpackers who would show up at our meals unannounced. And then we moved to Sydney, and we had even bigger meals. And then we moved to New York. And I'd been in New York 3 weeks when someone who knew us from Australia said, would I host a meal for all these foreign students who were studying their MBA and they had nowhere to go for Rosh Hashanah? And I landed up having 36 people from 30 different countries. And I realized there was like this need for Jewish people to have a Jewish home away from home when they were new to a city. So that started us hosting thousands of people, like literally every week, either dinner, lunch, big events, small events. And when we moved to Israel, we continued that. And here there's an organization called Shabbat of a Lifetime who also send you guests from all around the world. So now we also, in addition to Jews, we have Hasbara groups that we host. Hasbara means like reaching out in, giving Israel a proactive, positive message. And we host anything from evangelical Christians to Swedish pastors to Chinese businessmen, or as my daughter would say, or modern Orthodox Jews looking to get married. Or we host JWRP, the Momentum, Jewish moms from South Africa and all around the world. But except for COVID, we usually host hundreds of people every Shabbat in our home.
That's amazing. Jeez, that's incredible. I'd love to come to one of those one day.
You're all invited. Everybody's invited.
All of us.
You can never scare us. You can never scare us.
Every King David mom. So I just want to wrap up. We are nearing the end. Just from each of you, a quick 2 minutes. This is about the power of women. Where do you get your power from? And if you can maybe just give us a little bit of hope at this crazy time we find ourselves in.
Okay,
Melissa, you go first.
So I will say, I asked my Rebbitzin, I'm a Chabadnik, true and tried and tested, and I'm sure my Rebbitzin would like to put a shaitel on me and cover me up, but she accepts me for who I am, bless her. But I asked her one day, I was like, what's this whole thing with the woman-man debate? And she turned around and she said, the woman has the most important job. And I know probably I'm going to get a lot of feminine backlash right now in the feminist movement, but I honor the fact that I was able to raise my daughter and cultivate that at the home. Because as a Jewish woman, we are charged with the most important job of all, young minds that can be either nurtured to grow and flourish and thrive, or they can be crushed and not have the skills to cope with bullies and cope with being ostracized. And so I think as a woman today, it's okay in this feminist We Too movement to also recognize this little bit of femininity that I, for one, adore. Like you, Jody, I can't even imagine hosting that many, but I host like 90 people for Breaking of the Fast, and it's like my Oscars, and I look forward to every year. I like host and cook and feed and open my doors, and we as women are hosts. We're meant to bring people in and make the connections, and the connections for me personally are around food and the table. And today, so many kids are on their phones and they're not, they're not connecting eyeball to eyeball. Dinner time, meal time is that sacred time that you as a mother can make part of your day-to-day life. And if you teach your kids how to cook alongside you and how to use fresh ingredients, you will turn them into people who will make healthy choices and meals for themselves. And I know for one, like, I miss my late mom the most in the kitchen. I miss her the most when I open the spice drawer or I'm firing something up or something's cooking and she's saying, just taste what the dish needs. It's our heritage. Our heritage gets passed down. And if we don't stop it right now, we won't know what kichel and knedlach and challah and all these things are. It's your job to make hummus and teach your kids what Shabbat is. And yes, you can be a working, successful, powerful woman and create a company and create all the things that you want, but you can also know that the most important job, first and foremost, wife and mom for me, and putting food on the table and making a home is far more important than all the rest.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you so much. Jody, just in closing from you, where do you get your power from, and what hope can you share with us? You muted. Sorry, you have to unmute yourself. Sorry. Mute is the word of 2020. Don't worry.
Sorry, guys. I feel that each of us has the ability to change the world. Not change the world, the whole world, but change our world. Change the world we exist in. And I am truly passionate about waking up each morning and making every single day count. And I was very influenced by a family who started my journey. I dedicated the book to them. But I learned from them when I had no money and I was a struggling student and I had no way to say thank you. They said, pay it forward. And I learned from that. And I look at my life and how many people we're reaching and how many people we're impacting, that just the small gesture of pay what they did and I can pay it forward, and how many people we've impacted over the years, that you can change the world in your own little way. And I saw when it came to my daughter as well, you can really do small things in the grander scheme of the big world, but really make an impact. And the power of us as a mom, as a woman, is that I always say, especially Jewish women, we're like the gatekeepers, the influencers, and often even the decision makers in our home. And we're opinionated, we're strong, And we have the power to influence our family. And if you influence your family, you can influence a whole generation. And I think the last thing that a woman has is the power to be both Mama Grizzly if you need to be, and you can be soft and cuddly and steel at the same time. And that's something I think men can't be. And we have that ability to use our inner strength to impact whatever it is that's important to us and to change the world for our children, for the future, for our communities. And each one of us can do something, and it doesn't matter. You think it's small, but it's like a stone. It can have a ripple effect when you throw it in that water and it ricochets out there.
Thank you, Jody. Sure, you are both, and Simi, incredibly powerful women. Thank you so much. So just a reminder, this is a King David event. So as part of the King David family, there is the King David Schools Foundation as well, which is the fundraising arm for King David Schools and Soul, which provides adult inspiration for the KD parents, which organized tonight's webinar. So thank you to all of you who organized tonight. Also, just a reminder, both Melissa and Jody have books that they've recently written. If you look in the chat, all the details are there. We'll also put up a slide with the details at the end. Melissa's book is available online at www.melissamayo.com, and $5 of every book that is ordered online and collected in Joburg will be donated to the King David Schools Foundation. Jody's book is available for purchase at the Kollel bookshop. So also King David Schools will be making a donation to the King David Schools Foundation as well, in the names of all of our guest speakers. So thank you so much. Daniela, is there anything that you'd like to say in closing? You're on mute. Hang on, there we go.
Just a huge thank you to our amazing panel, and a huge thank you to you, Mandy, for your amazing facilitation. It's been an uplifting and inspiring evening, and given me personally a lot of golden nuggets for thought. So thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you. And thank you to you, Dan, as well, for pushing all the buttons. It's always nice to have a guy that presents around. Not that we couldn't find a woman to do your job, but thanks, Dan.
You're most welcome. It was absolutely awesome and inspiring, and I echo all of those comments. And I don't know if you saw that question in the Q&A, that comment. Mandy, let's not forget you are one of those strong and powerful women on the panel. So there's a request as well to hear your journey into journalism. So maybe another webinar follow up.
I've done enough of them over lockdown. But people have heard my story. Thank you, guys. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing.
Okay, and we have been recording this and streaming it through to YouTube, so those links will go out tomorrow as well.